All right, let's get this meeting going. Welcome everyone for the Planning and Strategic Initiatives Committee for February 26th. Also just want to make, I'll ask for pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof first. Seeing none, I want to update the committee that staff are requesting an amendment to the recommendation for item 3.2 to state Graphite Drive rather than Graphite Crescent to ensure compliance with the emergency services policy at the request of fire. I'll take a mover for the consent items. Moved by Councillor Johnston. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We'll move on to the posted meeting for the delegations. Please be aware that while public participation is welcome in meetings, we are committed to engaging in a respectful and constructive dialogue with members of the community, and conducting yourself in any of the following manners may result in an immediate removal from the meeting, and that is interrupting councillors, staff, or other delegations, derogatory statements about councillors, staff, or other, and hate speech or defamatory comments. One last reminder for delegations: please do not take offense if following your presentation there are no questions from Council. This is Council's time to really listen and reflect on the opinion and ideas shared with us from our community members. And the fact that this is a public hearing matter under the Planning Act, and to consider applications in the Planning Act, if a person or public body does not make oral written submissions to the City of Kitchener before the proposed applications are considered, the person or public body may not be entitled to appeal the decision of the Ontario Land Tribunal and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal. Item 6.1, zoning bylaw amendment for 186 Gale Place, Kitchener. Eric Schneider, you are presenting first. Mr. Schneider, I think you have also an amendment that you want to update the committee on. Whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, members of Council. My name is Eric Schneider, and I'm a senior planner at the City. I'm here tonight to make a recommendation for approval of a zoning bylaw amendment to facilitate the development of a draft-approved greenfield subdivision. On the next slide, I will first discuss the site context. The site is municipally addressed as 186 Gale Place and is located on the south side of Bleems Road between Trusler Road to the west and Fisher-Hallman Road to the east. The site is approximately 42 hectares in area. The site is in the Rosenberg planning community and is surrounded by other greenfield lands currently being developed into residential and planned to be developed into residential uses. On the next slide, I will speak to the background on this application. The site is a former aggregate pit that has now been decommissioned. The City received applications for a plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment in 2014. These applications were approved by the Local Planning Appeals Tribunal, now known as the Ontario Land Tribunal, in February of 2020. The lands have since been sold to the current applicant, Kitchener Green Developments, Inc. On the next slide, I will discuss the proposed concept. The site is proposed to be developed with up to 1,500 new residential dwelling units. 2 collector roads, Amon Drive and Rosenberg Way, are to be constructed and extended, as well as the construction of local roads. A neighborhood park, urban green, and a school site for an elementary school are included within the lands. For this current application, on the next slide, no major changes to the layout of the subdivision, including the street patterns or the land uses, are proposed. Rather, this application is requesting to establish site-specific development standards for a portion of the subdivision to be developed with residential uses. These include minimum and maximum building heights, floor space ratios, vehicle and bicycle parking rates, lot sizes, etc. The proposed development standards align with previously approved subdivision lands located to the west of the site, also owned by the same applicant. The intent is to develop these lands as a cohesive community with similar principles for development standards and building typologies. As we move to the next slide, I will briefly speak about the current opportunity with this application. The opportunity to move forward on development within the Rosenberg community, This community is designed to be a complete community with all homes within a 5-minute walk to the neighborhood park and school site. And finally, to facilitate the development of up to 1,500 residential dwelling units in a variety of low-rise forms, including live-work units. On the next slide, I want to bring to the attention of the committee some minor line work changes that were made as a result of minor lotting changes with the subdivision plan, which results in minor technical changes to the map number 1 and bylaw to account for those line work changes. The applicant is aware of the required changes and finds them satisfactory. I've asked my colleagues and clerks to share the revised map number 1 and bylaw at the appropriate time. To summarize my presentation, planning staff is recommending approval of the subject zoning bylaw amendment application to establish specific development standards for the draft approved subdivision. Planning staff finds that the proposed application represents good planning principles and is consistent with provincial, regional, and cities planning policies. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Our first delegation is David Riley with SGL Planning, Inc. David, whenever you're ready, you have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you so much, Chair Singh and members of Council. My name is David Riley with SGL Planning and Design. I'm here on behalf of Kitchener Green Developments in relation to the lands at 186
Sorry,
Gale
David,
Place.
if you can just pause for a second. Do you know what's happening? Or? Oh, there
How
you go.
about that? 2 microphones. There you go.
Sorry, you can start again if you want.
Well, that's okay. So I'm here on behalf of Kitchener Green Developments, owner of the lands at 186 Gale Place, and Brad Trussler from Kitchener Green is with me tonight. We're here tonight in support of staff's recommendation to approve the zoning bylaw amendment application for the lands. And as Eric mentioned, the application is pretty straightforward, as you can see in the staff report. The zoning and the plan of subdivision has already been approved for the land, and my client has since purchased the land. And the reason and purpose for our application is really to modify that approved zoning to be in line with the adjacent and nearby developments that my client has built. So in terms of built form, everything kind of lines up. And so I don't want to take up any more time tonight here, but I did want to take the opportunity to thank Eric and Garrett and the rest of staff. It's been great working with everyone, especially under these new tight timelines that we're all dealing with. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your comments. Any questions of the delegation? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions of staff? Okay. I just want to remind that any recommendations arising from this matter will be considered at a special meeting, council meeting later this day. Can I take a mover? Oh, Councillor Johnston, do you? Okay, all right. Yeah, I think it's Councillor O'Dooney's ward. Let's give it to him. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to chime in and say, is it possible for me to move this when the time comes? But
Yeah, of course.
you jumped in before that, so I would love to move it when the time comes.
Sounds good. It's moved by Councillor O'Dooney. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Okay. I'll just look at the clerks. Can we proceed or should we wait?
Okay.
I don't know about Councillor Chapman, but it was hard to hear.
Yeah, we're fixing
the
some
speaker in the-
difficulties that we're having with the audio.
Good. Okay, thanks.
Our CEO is helping. He does everything. Okay. 6.2 official plan amendment application, zoning bylaw amendment application for 3242 Wyndham Road. Eric, you're up again.
Thank you. Good evening once again. I'm here tonight to make a recommendation for approval of an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment to facilitate a 58-unit multi-residential development. As we move to the next slide, I will first discuss the site context of the neighborhood. The site is municipally addressed as 32 and 42 Wyndham Road. The property is a consolidation of two homes on large lots, creating a parcel with 44 meters of lot width and an area of about 3,400 square meters, or 0.34 hectares. The subject lands are located in the Centerville-Chicopee Planning Community and are walking distance to the Centerville-Chicopee Community Center, Howard Robertson Public School, and the Dom Cardillo Trail. The surrounding neighborhood is a mix of low and medium-rise residential uses, including townhouse developments on both abutting side property lines, and two 4-story residential buildings abutting the rear property line and facing Fairway Road North. The opposite side of Wyndham Road contains single and semi-detached dwellings. On the next slide, I'll discuss the proposed concept. The site is proposed to be developed with two 3.5-story buildings containing 58 dwelling units. Surface parking for 47 vehicles is to be provided on the site, along with walkways, landscaped areas, and an outdoor at-grade amenity area behind the building. Unit entrances address the street on Wyndham Road, on either side of the vehicular access, at the center of the site. As we move to the next slide, I'll speak briefly about the current opportunity with this application. The opportunity to create 58 dwelling units, including 3- and 4-bedroom dwelling units, creating them on an existing site for an opportunity for infill development within a neighborhood with adequate municipal services. To contribute to the diversity of housing within the neighborhood by providing multiple dwellings in a low-rise setting. And to situate development in built-up areas that are walking distance to amenities and have access to public transit, encouraging transit use and active transportation. Moving now to the next slide, I will summarize the details of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment request. To permit a maximum floor space ratio of 1.4 and a building height of 15.1 meters as a specific policy area in the official plan. And to establish site-specific development standards for yard setbacks, building height, floor space ratio, vehicle and bicycle parking, and a prohibition of geothermal wells. In summary, the proposed application represents good planning principles and is consistent with provincial, regional, and the city's planning policies. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Snyder, I know that you keyed in to move it, or questions of staff? Awesome. Okay, I'll come to you at a later point. We'll go to the delegations. David Galbraith. On my sheet here it says Dave, but I went off memory. David?
Yeah, either's fine.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right, good evening. My name is Dave Galbraith from Up Consulting. I'm here tonight on behalf of Jackman Construction and Vibe Developments, who are proposing the redevelopment of 32 to 42 Wyndham Road in Kitchener. This address is probably pretty familiar to Council, as 42 Wyndham has been subject to 2 previous planning applications, but this application includes an additional lot as part of the broader consolidation. So tonight I'll give you a brief background and the site context, discuss the proposed development and the required planning approvals, and give my professional recommendation as well. So the subject property is municipally known as 32 to 42 Wyndham Road in the City of Kitchener. It has a lot area of about 0.35 hectares and 48 meters of frontage. The shape of the lot is rectangular with frontage onto Wyndham Road. The rear of the site backs onto 2 mid-rise apartment buildings, as you've heard from Eric, and then on both sides of the site are existing townhouse developments. In terms of the neighborhood context, this again just shows some of the uses within the area, which Eric has already discussed. So the applicant is proposing the development of the site for 58 stacked townhouse units. And of these, 18 are proposed as 1-bedroom units, which would be in the basement level, 20 as 2-bedroom units, 18 as 3-bedroom units, and a rarity, 2 as 4-bedroom units, which you don't see often in stacked townhouses. A total of 47 parking stalls are proposed on the site. which means that not every unit will have a dedicated parking space, but there is access to transit in this neighborhood, and there's good walking trails as well. In terms of amenity space, there's a common amenity area proposed at the back of the site, and then many of the units will have balconies facing inwards to the common areas of the site. And the development itself contemplates a floor space ratio of approximately 1.4 and a building height of 15.1 meters, and that's measured to the top of the roof pitch. So this slide shows the proposed site plan for the development. You can see that the units facing onto Wyndham Road on the right side of your screens are largely shielding the parking area towards the back of the site. And then there's the common amenity space in the northwest corner of the property. The next couple of slides just show some photorealistic renderings of the proposed development. So you can see the three-story massing plus the basement units, the common amenity area tucked at the back, and the parking area in the foreground. This shows an aerial view or perspective of the site, looking from Wyndham to the rear. So in terms of the application itself, an official plan amendment and corresponding zone change application are proposed. The official plan amendment deals with the proposed floor space ratio and building height of 15.1 meters, and the zoning bylaw amendment deals with those two items, as well as a side yard setback of 2.5 meters and the site-specific parking ratio. And I note with respect to the side yard setback, again, the balconies have been positioned inwards to the site to respect privacy of the neighboring residential uses. So in my opinion, the application is in alignment with the applicable land use planning policy framework that applies to the site. The development is context appropriate and represents the type of infilling that council is striving for in the city. Based on that, I would recommend approval of the official plan amendment and zone change.
Thank you very much. Councillor Johnson, you have a question?
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Singh. And thank you. This looks really good. One of my questions, I'm wondering if you can go back in your presentation to, I guess, where the, yes, I guess the overall lot piece. Where is there a spot for kids here? Do you have green space in there?
Yeah, so there is a perimeter, there will be perimeter landscaping, so that's the 2.5 meter buffer around the perimeter of the site. And then there is a common amenity space. It's approximately 80 square meters in the back corner of the site. We haven't developed a landscape plan yet, but that would be required through the site plan approvals process. So there's likely to be a sitting area and then some outdoor space to be shared by the residents. And then most of the units have balconies as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last piece that you said.
Most of the units have balconies as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about playground equipment? I mean, you've got, this is amazing. You have 2 4-bedroom units there, 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom. This is going to attract families, which is amazing, but we'll need spots for kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So through you, Councillor Singh, the site is in very close proximity to Howard Robertson School, just at the end of the cul-de-sac. While it's not a formal municipal park, there are 2 playgrounds there that would be used in evening hours. There's also a community center just on the other side of, what street am I saying?
Right.
That's in proximity, and then there's the trail network here as well. So all of those amenities are within very close proximity to the site for recreational purposes.
They are, but a school site isn't a playground during school time and during school days. So is there a plan to put some playground equipment here?
Through you, Councillor Singh, we haven't developed the landscape plan yet. There might be an opportunity for like a small tot lot or some climbing structure at the back of the site. It's not a it's 80 square meters, so there would be an opportunity for the sitting area and likely some outdoor space for kids, but we haven't gotten to that point yet.
If there's a way of looking at the property to be able to do something like that here, I think it's going to be really, really important. That's a very busy road to cross to go to the community center. Like I said, you're not to use playgrounds. Playgrounds are not part of park space. They're really not. And so if there's a way of you doing that on this property, I think will be really important for the families there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I think what the delegation has said that hopefully staff through the site plan process will try to address that as well. Councillor Schneider.
Yes, I just, I want to thank the developer and staff for listening to some of the concerns that were brought up by residents in terms of visitor parking. And I really like the fact that you've adjusted to have one secured indoor parking spot for each, bike parking spot for each unit. And I hear what you're saying, Councillor Johnson, knowing this area very well. You could walk through the schoolyard and there's a good crossing to the Centerville Chicopee Community Center. It has the best splash pad in the city, and there's some more improvements coming there, and a really good neighborhood association that I hope some of these residents will become a part of. So I think this is really good infill in a really good place.
Okay. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for your presentation. So I just had a couple questions about, first of all, tree loss. What does that look like on these properties?
Through you, Councillor Singh. So the development does take up much of the boundary of the property. So the vast majority of the trees are expected to be removed in order to accommodate it. But through the site plan approvals process, we'll work with urban design staff for a tree planting scheme across the site.
Okay, it sounds like it could be tight, given the setbacks, but that's good, thank you. And what about affordable housing units? These are all rentals, I presume?
Through you, Councillor Singh, yes, the units are proposed as purpose-built rental. None are contemplated as affordable housing, but there is a range of options here, and that would cater to different lifestyles, right? So you have the larger units for families, and then the bachelor suites, which would be suitable for singles and couples. But none of the units are contemplated as affordable housing.
Okay, you mentioned bachelor suites. I didn't see that in the list of units. I see one bedroom. Are there also bachelor suites in this development?
Maybe I misspoke. I did misspeak. Sorry, they're one-bedroom units.
Okay. Okay, thank you. My last question has to do with sustainability features. Are there any here, and what are they?
So through you, Councillor Singh, there was a preliminary sustainability statement proposed as part of the application. That included the parking reduction for the site, so supporting active modes of transportation to and from the property. And then through the site plan approval process, additional measures will be considered, but they haven't been nailed down at this point.
Okay, I guess my last question had to do with the school drop-off point. I know that was brought up in the comments from residents, and I just wondered if that was being looked at or not.
So through you, Councillor Singh, the application isn't proposing the use of on-street parking. It does, of the parking spaces that are being provided, a number of them will be allocated as visitor parking spaces. There still is the ability for on-street parking on one side of the street on Windham Road, but as part of the application, the transportation impact study was also prepared, and the counts were done in September of this year, so as school was already in session. So it was considered, and the effects of this development were deemed acceptable by the transportation consultant.
Okay, I'll just close by saying I'm very happy to see the number of 3- and 4-bedroom units, so that's great to have. We need more of those. Thank you.
Just for clarification, it is on a cul-de-sac and almost adjacent to a school. I know it won't serve everyone, but that would be a bulk of the students going to that school there.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, those are all the questions. Thank you very much. Any questions of staff? Seeing none, I'll come to Councillor Schneider. Do you have comments?
Just, I made them already. I'd just like to, again, say thanks to staff and the applicant, and happy to move this.
Thank you very much. It's been moved. With that, before I do, just want to quickly read this out, that any recommendation arising from this matter will be considered at a special council meeting later this date. All those in favor? Opposed? And that too carries. Now on to official plan amendment, a zoning bylaw amendment, application for 490 Huron Road.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just prior to moving on to 490 Huron Road, I just wanted to touch base on Gale Place. Due to the staffing, the proposed amendment with the additional mapping, the clause related to pursuant to that no additional notice would be required should have been included in the recommendation. So if with your indulgence, if you wouldn't mind just re-voting on the matter to confirm that the clause be added.
Okay, so with that item and the amendment as noted on the screens, do we need a mover? I'll get a mover. Councillor Davey. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, back to item 6.3. Mr. Dumart, I think you're presenting on this one. Welcome. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good evening and thank you. Wait for the slides to come up there. Okay, thank you. Before you is a zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment application for the subject lands located at 490 Huron Road, proposing a mixed-use development with 4 residential towers, 12 to 24 stories in height, with future freestanding commercial buildings. Staff are recommending approval of the proposed amendments. The subject lands are a large vacant parcel of land with frontage on both Huron Road and Strasbourg Road. Employment uses are located directly to the northwest of the subject lands, and an existing secondary school is located at the northeast corner of Huron and Strasbourg Road. To the west of the subject lands is a vacant parcel of land planned for a mixed-use development. To the east of the subject lands, along the east side of Strasbourg Road, is also a vacant parcel of land planned to accommodate commercial and/or mixed-use developments. And an existing residential subdivision is also located to the east of the subject lands. Directly to the south of the subject property is an existing religious institutional development. Environmental features, including a large woodlot, is also located to the south of the property. So the site itself is well buffered from existing low-rise residential uses, and it does not currently contain any buildings or residential dwellings. 490 Huron Road has 3 land use designations that apply to the subject lands in the 2014 official plan, which includes a commercial land use designation along Huron Road, a mixed-use land use designation which applies along Strasbourg frontage and the lands internal to the site. Additionally, a small sliver of the land has a natural heritage conservation land use that applies to the south portion of lands. So the commercial land use, it allows for a range of commercial uses, and that would be located along Huron Road, while the mixed use land use designation allows for a high-intensity mixed-use development with buildings up to a maximum height of 15 stories with a maximum floor space ratio of 4. Specific policy area 40 also applies to the entire lands, which restricts residential dwellings within the commercial portion of lands, and it does not require any residential or non-residential uses or commercial uses on the mixed-use portion of lands. So essentially, these policies were imposed through an OLT decision, which came up with the specifics and a specific lot separation and split zoning separation on the subject lands. The subject lands also have split zoning, as mentioned, which implements the land use of the subject lands with site-specific provision 120 also applying, which does not require, again, any commercial uses in the mixed zone. So essentially what we have here is an existing site with existing planning framework, which allows for the entire site to function like a mixed-use development with the lands along Huron as commercial only, and then the high-intensity residential development is located along Strasbourg and internal to the site. So again, as mentioned in my previous slides, the subject lands have multiple land use designations and zoning applying to them, and the applicant is only proposing to amend the mixed-use land use designation and zoning portion of the lands. More specifically, the applicant is proposing to allow for a range of tower heights on the subject lands, and is proposing to amend site-specific policy 40 to increase the maximum permanent height to 24 stories or 80 meters, whereas the maximum number of stories now is only 15 stories. And the applicant is proposing to amend the site-specific provision 120 and add a holding provision 82H to the subject lands. Site-specific provision 120 amended will permit an increased maximum building height of 24 stories or 80 meters. It will allow for the maximum floor space ratio of 4. It will regulate the location of parking spaces and require no minimum ground floor street line facade for a building that abuts a street line, while holding provision 82H is required to ensure matters related to noise are addressed prior to lifting of the holding provision. So before you is a concept site plan for the entirety of the lands for the proposed mixed-use development. The proposed amendments will allow for the development of 4 towers ranging in heights from 12 to 24 stories with 760 residential units. The towers are proposed to be located internal to the site with future commercial uses, amenity spaces, and parking located along Huron Road. 2 vehicular connections are proposed for the development, 1 access off of Huron Road and 1 access off of Strasbourg Road. On the concept plan before you, you'll see that there's a red line which shows the split zone line between the mixed use and commercial land use and zoning. So the concept plan here illustrates how the proposed towers have been pushed as close as possible to that split zone line, and they're essentially located as furthest away from the low-rise residential developments to the east of the property. Before you are building renderings of the proposed mixed-use development. The buildings vary in height, the tallest buildings being 24 and 20 stories, which again are proposed to be located internal to the site, furthest away from the low-rise residential, where the 12-story buildings are proposed closer to Huron and Strasbourg Road, which provide a transition to nearby low-rise residential neighborhoods. This development will include a range of unit types, including 1- and 2-bedroom units, and the applicant is not proposing a parking reduction, as adequate on-site parking for the residents and visitors will be provided in accordance with the existing zoning bylaw requirements. The proposed development presents an opportunity to develop the underutilized parcel of land with a new compatible development that implements the official plan. This proposed development will contribute towards meeting the city's housing targets, diversify housing stock, provide an additional housing choice in the community, and provide a full range of unit types. Furthermore, this development will provide for an opportunity to introduce a new compatible built form to the neighborhood and contribute towards a complete community. The proposed development and zoning bylaw amendment are consistent with policies of the provincial policy statement, conform to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the region official plan, and the City of Kitchener official plan. They represent good planning and are in public interest. Staff recommend approval of the proposed amendments. Thank you.
Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Mr. Dumart, for the presentation. This is a substantial development here, and 170 units, I think you said, or 67 or something, anyways. 170 units, 1- and 2-bedrooms. We're getting a lot of these that come to council, these big, large high-rises, and they're all 1- and 2-bedrooms. That's not, in my mind, contributing to the full stock of selection for housing. Is there any opportunity here to get some 3-bedroom units in these developments?
Through the chair, staff have encouraged the wide range of unit types, and in conversations with the applicant, they are open through the site plan approvals process to adding 3-bedroom units.
I think it'd be really great to see, like a significant amount of 3-bedroom offerings here, and that would be a difference coming forward than a lot of the ones that have been come to us as of late. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
All right. You keyed in, but I should have gone to delegations first. I made that mistake. That's okay. It's my fault. I should have said go ahead. Andrea Sinclair. Ms. Sinclair, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I'm Andrea Sinclair with MHBC Planning. Craig's already gone over the basics of the application, but I'll just reiterate a few points. So next slide. Oh, it's me. So as mentioned, the site is located at the intersection of 2 arterial roads. There is a roundabout intersection and multi-use trail that runs along both frontages. Transit is already available in this area with plans to further extend transit south along the Strasbourg Road extension. This site is unique in a way in that it's quite separated from the low-rise residential. We have the division of Strasbourg Road and the creek to the west, so we're not immediately abutting, which does allow us to provide a little bit of height here without having shadow impacts and other negative impacts on the surrounding residential area. In terms of the existing official plan framework, I just note that it's been in place for almost 10 years now, but it does already allow the FSR of 4 in the OP, and we're not increasing that from what's already permitted. In terms of height in the official plan, it does give consideration to go up to 15 stories, which could be permitted immediately abutting Strasbourg. We've actually kept the height along Strasbourg at 12 stories and have gone to put more height, more internal to the site, where it's further removed from the residential neighborhood to the east. As mentioned by Mr. Dumar, the site is split zoned right now. So the applications before you are really just dealing with the portion of the site that is zoned mix 3, but the commercial zoning will remain in place, and the site's been designed in a way that can allow for some commercial in the future if the market is there for it. So this is the site plan concept. As mentioned, at the northeast corner, you can see sort of the area hatched out that we've sized to make sure it could still accommodate some commercial buildings in the future. As mentioned, there's a separate amenity building. This is something that our client Lexington Park has done with some success on a project in Waterloo. So each building will still have amenity space, but having that larger amenity building that they can all share allows us to have much more substantial amenity and sort of a larger, more concentrated things for things like the fitness center. So that's what we're proposing here. That's already permitted in the current zoning. There are a number of environmental features to the west, so we're fully outside of that natural heritage zone, and all the setbacks have been applied to, so we're not proposing to encroach within any of that natural heritage area. In terms of the project itself, as mentioned, there's 4 purpose-built apartment buildings, likely rental. We're still determining that. As everyone knows, we're all kind of trying to catch up with the constant change of provincial changes, and it's hard to really say anything for sure these days, but Lexington Park primarily does build high-quality purpose-built rentals. I did hear the comment on 1 and 2 bedroom units, so we haven't finalized unit layouts. It's a little too early, but the nice thing about this, with it being 4 towers and it being phased, is we can respond to kind of the market as each phase comes around. And if there is a market for 3 bedroom units and they think that they can rent here at a price that's reasonable, then they're certainly willing to consider incorporating them. Lexington does typically go for a higher percentage of 2 bedroom units over 1 bedroom as kind of their standard unit mix. These are just some very preliminary conceptual drawings. We haven't gotten into detailed materials and those things. We are working with Martin Simmons Swears, local architecture firm known for, again, very high quality development. This just demonstrates that on the site plan level, the parking looks like a large garage, but the way the grades work on the sites, it really kind of ends up just being, for the most part, a single level of parking. We have some significant constraints with groundwater on the site, so we weren't able to go to a second level of underground parking, which is why we've done this structure in a way that's going to be screened from everything and not visible from here on or Strasbourg Road. I'll just move through these fairly quickly. In terms of landscape area, again, you don't really pick this up from the technical site plan, but we do want to have high quality landscape and outdoor amenity space available for the residents of this building, these buildings, given the number of units. So these are just some preliminary images to give you a better idea of what that outdoor area surrounding the amenity building could look like. So in conclusion, this is an area that is a primary intensification area. We're not increasing the density from what the official plan already permits. The height has been located central to the site where it's got the least impact on surrounding residential. The natural features associated with the creek will be maintained, and the site plan has been designed with flexibility in the future for those commercial uses should there be a market for those down the road. And we're expecting to have very high quality buildings and landscape architecture, all of which will be worked through in the detailed site plan phase. So thank you. Here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Just for clarification, what's the total unit count?
It's 760.
760, yeah, okay. Yes, when you said 160, I wasn't sure. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Singh, I'll ask a similar question. So I didn't see any playground equipment at all, and then I know you said you're going to be putting in a large amenities building. Will there be playground and more kind of outdoor equipment? I like the seating spots. It's amazing.
Yes, and through you, Mr. Chair, we are expecting that in this location, it will attract families, so we want to make sure that those amenity spaces do appeal to the full range. So we do anticipate having space, whether that be indoor or outdoor, that provides sort of that play facility. That is something we're looking at. We're just not super far along in terms of the amenity planning.
Just like to plant the seed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Regarding the amenity space, I mean, the images you showed look very appealing. Is that facing on Huron Road?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, it is along Huron Road, so we would try to tie into the existing multi-use trail, but because of that, we want to make sure that there's also indoor space, and we're looking at other sites, other areas on the site where we can have some outdoor space that isn't right along the road, but that that larger landscape area is along the Huron Road frontage.
So I thought, well, I probably got this wrong, but I thought that along Huron Road, it was actually zoned commercial. So how do you accommodate both? And I realize you're not going to be building commercial at this point, but you said that it could be allowed for in the future.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So the commercial zoning there is site-specific regulations that allow amenity for the residential to be within the commercial zone. So the zoning does contemplate and allow that to happen. The area where I mentioned where we could accommodate commercial in the future is located on the east side of the site, closer to the roundabout intersection, which is where we thought would be most appropriate if there is commercial. Those images I showed of the landscaping and the outdoor amenity are more on the west side of the site, right beside the first residential tower and beside the amenity building. So we are going to leave an area that will be likely just, seeded, sodded, basic landscaping, so that if there's a desire in the future to bring some commercial, that can be added. Otherwise, it can be all landscaped, but that is permitted within that commercial zone.
And are there any commercial outlets in this area? I mean, to bring in 760 new units and, maybe almost double the number of residents, are there commercial outlets in this area?
So there's some large commercial developments further west on Huron Road, and then the site on the opposite intersection at Huron-Strasbourg, the southeast corner, that is fully zoned for commercial development and is a more sized in a way that works better with commercial pad sites. The site with the split zoning, and Lexington does own a lot of commercial properties. They do a lot of commercial development, and they were challenged on this site with the depth of the commercial to really make it work and attract the type of commercial uses that we would want here. So the other site, there is still the opportunity to have commercial on that site in the future.
Okay. My next question has to do with the sustainability component. And in the report, it says sustainable development initiatives will be further implemented at the site plan approval process through the detailed design review of the building. I was just wondering if you could give us any idea of, again, given the size of this development, what types of sustainable features would could you foresee negotiating or providing on this site?
So there's obviously a number of things that are done sort of automatically, like providing bicycle parking, providing high efficiency light fixtures and appliances. We're looking at HVAC systems that would be far more efficient. There's things you can do in terms of making sure the roof structure can support potentially solar in the future. Again, it is more detail that we get into at site plan, but in particular, if this becomes purpose-built rental and Lexington's holding on to it for the long term, which is what they've done on most of their other developments, then automatically it's to their own benefit to provide a lot of sustainable features that are going to make the building sort of more cost-effective for the renters in terms of keeping the heating and cooling costs down. The design of the buildings has been done in a way that's sort of a simple footprint that is much more efficient and energy, has a lot more energy savings. Sorry, I don't know if that means I'm out of time, but there will be a number of things we can look at, certainly through detailed design.
Okay, one question about EV chargers. Will you actually have EV chargers
Yes, we will.
on site?
Yes, there will be.
Or EV ready, like actual chargers or EV ready?
There will be both. We'll have EV-ready stalls and spaces that have chargers.
And do you know the number of the actual EV ready, or not ready, but the EV stalls?
I don't recall the number off the top of my head, but there is a bylaw requirement that we would be meeting or exceeding.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So now that I'm, clear on the amount of units, 700 and more than 170, I just want to reiterate the importance of giving more of a selection for the amount of space. And so I'm wondering if it would be possible to get a commitment, I can't get it from you tonight, I'm sure, but before this comes to council, that we could see 3-bedroom units in this development.
So it's something, again, it's hard to commit to that at this stage, not knowing how many years out we are from building it. It's certainly a comment I can take back before this comes back to council for final decision on if there can be a firm commitment, but it is something we're looking at and may be able to incorporate some 3-bedroom units.
Yeah, I really think I'm going to talk to all my council colleagues here tonight, but I think it's important that we start pushing for 3-bedroom units in these and looking for more of a commitment than, I understand 10 years out, but we're allowing this amount of intensification coming here, so we want to make sure that everyone has the ability for a quality living space. And we just keep seeing 2-bedroom units and 2-bedroom units, and that's not a quality of living space for everyone. So
yeah, and appreciate the comment. Part of the challenge is the cost. These types of developments are the most expensive form of housing to build. So when you're in an area that has a lot of townhouses and singles and stacked towns being developed, it's sometimes harder. The price point of renting a 3-bedroom in one of these projects versus renting a 3-bedroom, say, townhouse or stacked, is sometimes a higher price point just because of the sheer cost of building these developments. But it's certainly something we will look for. It's just, in this area, it's actually almost the opposite, where there's very few 1- and 2-bedroom units available. It's mostly more family type of
family
product.
homes, but these are apartments you're building. So I'm really going to insist and push for the 3 bedrooms going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Ioannidis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Singh, and thanks, Ms. Sinclair, for coming in. I guess my question is with regards to amenity space, because I'm sorry if I missed this, because I was going through everything and just looking at all the comments. So just wondering, what is the amenity space that's going to be included outside, like in the building? Like, is there going to be like a gym? Is there going to be stuff like that?
Yeah, so through Mr. Chair, so there's the standalone amenity building that we're proposing, which is quite large. It will be definitely exceeding any amenity space requirements. That's where we expect things like gym facility. We're looking at a whole bunch of different things. Sometimes we're starting to incorporate things for people who work at homes. They have a space that they can use for kind of work at home type use, so it doesn't have to be in their unit. We're expecting within each individual building there will also be, the party room, like the other type of thing. So definitely fitness facilities. We haven't really worked through all the detail, but we expect there will be amenity in each of the towers as well as that larger amenity building.
Okay. Yeah, I think this looks great, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Singh, and thank you so much for coming in. Nice to see you again. My question was around your timing for this. Councillor Michaud's question reminded me of that.
So we're hoping to submit for site plan application. If we get approval of this, then we want to submit this spring, or sort of as soon as possible, because we know it's going to take some time to get through the site plan process, and want to proceed to go on the first building as soon as possible, as long as we can make sure the market aligns. But this is a project that they do not want to sit on. They want to move forward with it.
Okay, because somewhere I thought you had said 3 or 4 years out or something, is that?
Oh, because there's so multiple towers, so we're expecting by the time all of it is built out, it will be several years, but we're hoping to do a first phase to submit for site plan this year, and then we expect that'll take us through probably the remainder of this year to get site plan approval, and then potentially submitting for building permits next year.
In 2025.
For the first tower. It's just, it's a
Yeah.
lot of units, so it won't all be
Yeah.
built at once.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear, though. Thank you.
That's everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Rick Tomek. Rick, welcome. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation or delegation.
Sure, thank you. I'm a trustee of the Apostolic Christian Church, which is adjacent to this proposed development. As you might have noticed in some of the presentation, our church is dwarfed by this proposed development. And so the layout, from our perspective, I think looks fairly decent. It's been improved from the original one. Our concern, of course, is the fact that right adjacent to our buildings, we have these 20 and 24-story buildings. So from our perspective, the highest buildings are the closest to our facility and where we normally go in and out and congregate. So our concern is the amendment to stretch the height that substantially. I don't think there's anything remotely close in our area that is anywhere near that height. And so we would appreciate consideration for the heights.
Okay. There are no questions. Thank you very much. Oh, there is now. Councillor Johnston.
Sorry, Councillor Singh, thank you. Can you tell me where your church is in relation to the buildings? Are you on Huron, or where would you be?
I don't know if someone can bring up a map for the layout. So we're on Strasburg Road, downhill from where the proposed development is.
Okay.
So we are on the south,
So, in the rear.
primarily south. So you can see the buildings down the bottom here, bottom right, that's our facility there.
Right
Don't-
where the cursor is.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, across the, okay. All right. Thank you.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Singh. Thank you for coming in and sharing your concerns. I just wonder if your church might see this as a wonderful opportunity with 760 units. It may be a great opportunity for people to attend your church.
Yeah, I mean, there's no concern with people attending our church. I think we do have some concern about people attending our lot when church is not in session, because we're adding thousands of people, and so some concern about where people will spend their free time, because apparently, as proposed, there's nothing to divide our properties, and we've historically had plenty of trouble with school kids loitering on the property, leaving all their garbage behind, needles, on and on it goes, and so this potentially will add to it. So we're not opposed to development, but the high density certainly brings with it additional things, as I think we've seen throughout the city.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, Rick. We'll open it up for questions of staff. Okay, can I get a mover? Go to Councillor Stretch. Yes.
I have a question.
This question of staff? Question of staff? Councillor Chapman?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead then.
Yeah, okay, so first I was just wondering if staff has considered or would consider some form of dividing line, a fence or something between the two properties, out of respect for the church's space.
So look at staff other than the big garage that's behind. But again, if you want to explain the site plan process as well.
Yeah, so the zoning bylaw would require a visual barrier, which would typically be in the form of a fence, if this were abutting a low-rise residential development. However, it's abutting another institutional or commercial property. So what the proposed development has is the actual buildings themselves is set back, but 40 meters to the common shared property line. and deck abutting their parking lot. So essentially you have two similar uses abutting each other with a landscape berm between the two of them. So it is buffered naturally by landscaping, but the zoning bylaw itself would not actually require the fence or the visual barrier.
Okay, just maybe something to consider when you get to the site plan stage. The other question I had is, so this came to, this application was deemed complete on August 15th, 2022. Maybe you can just explain the process since then.
Through the chair, since August 2022, the applicant had amended the original application to add additional density on site. Once the revised, supporting documents were submitted, staff then held a neighborhood meeting and provided an overview of the proposed development. Following the meeting, we considered all comments, wrote the staff report, which brings us to tonight.
And somebody mentioned something about the OLT imposition of the actual zoning of the property.
To the chair, so the site itself has a split land use and split zoning, and there's on the concept site plan I described, there's a split zone line. It's very irregular in shape, and it was a hatched out red line. And that line itself was decided and imposed to the OLT, and essentially it was to limit the location of residential uses to the nearby employment uses. So this application, they're not proposing amendments to the commercial component, just the mixed-use component to increase the actual building height.
Okay, so there is an increase in the height, which contradicts the Crosby zoning allotments, is that correct? Like under zoning, it would allow for...
Yeah, the existing planning framework...
12 stories or 10 stories?
The existing planning framework allows for up to 15 stories in an FSR of 4. So essentially what the existing planning policies would allow for is 5 or 6 15-story buildings. However, to get a variation in heights, they're proposing 4 buildings, 12 to 24. So they're not proposing any amendments to the OP to increase the FSR. It's just the building height to allow for that range of building heights.
Okay, and does that mean more units or the same number of units if you were to distribute them differently?
That exercise wasn't done, but essentially, yes, it could potentially be the same number of units.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Singh. Just a quick question, and it's been brought up about 3-bedroom units. Is there any research or any statistics on the demand for 3-bedroom units? I mean, I just want to know if it's something that we should be asking for, if there's a big demand for it.
Thank you, and through the chair. So number of bedrooms is not something we regulate within the zoning bylaw, so we would have to understand that they said that they would look at that as part of the site plan, so I don't know that we'd have any additional information between now and council. What we do know is we have the housing statistics on how many bedrooms we have in units across the city. So we have roughly 100,000 units in the city, and 2/3 of them are 3 bedrooms, but 2/3 of our population are households of 2 or less people. So 1/3 of our population is living in housing that has more bedrooms than people living within the building. So what we do know is we have a sufficient amount of 3 bedrooms, but some people, it's described as overhoused, where they have more bedrooms in housing than they require. I will say that in this neighborhood specifically, this does offer that variety of housing type that largely does not exist now. This neighborhood has a lot of single detached and street fronting and ground oriented townhouses, which are larger, or 2 or 3 bedrooms, and even some of the single detached would be bigger than that. The challenge of a suburban 3-bedroom unit, and especially in a rental, is the cost to carry that, whether it would be your rent check or the cost of your condominium, is spread across floor area for an apartment-style building of this kind, and it could result in costs that are roughly the same and sometimes even more than a ground-oriented 3-bedroom house. So we do know that we have a large secondary rental market within our greenfield, so those are investor-owned singles and towns and duplexes that are rented to people who require multiple bedrooms, and that's really where we're seeing the interest. So we aren't surprised to see this in this housing form to see 1 and 2 bedroom units proposed here, because this actually is the variety of housing types that is missing in this area of the Greenfield.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ioannidis for comments.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Singh, and I think Garrett, you summed it up very well with, from what I've been hearing in the market with regards to 3 bedrooms. I think the area is served very well, and I think this would be a really good addition to the neighborhood, in particular those that that are aging and wanting to move it, still remain in the neighborhood. This gives them that option to downsize, and it's really an ideal location. So I'm supportive of the recommendation, and you know, I think the proponents are going to do the best they can, knowing from what I've seen from their projects throughout Waterloo and everything else, that they do a really exceptional job with regards to the design and everything else, and I don't have too many concerns with regards to how they're going to handle the situation with all that in the design. So I feel very confident this will be quite a great addition to the neighborhood, and especially with the school being across. You're going to get a lot of single-family homes. I mean, single-family parents that are where, as Garrett was mentioning, that there is quite a bit of lack of housing in that neighborhood, and it's just going to really enhance it. So,
Councillor Davey.
Yes, thank you. I won't repeat Councillor Ioannidis' comments, but I largely agree. It looks like a great development. I think we've all pushed for 3-bedroom units in the past as well, and I think Mr. Stevenson did sum up very well. And in areas like this, there are no, I'm assuming hardly any 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom units, so there is a need, assuming that we want to have a mix of families in our neighborhoods. But that is not to say that when more developments come to the downtown core, that's when we should definitely be pushing for more 3-bedroom, because it seems like all of the huge towers that are coming in are those 1 and 2 bedrooms. We want to make sure we don't build a split community. So in this location, I think it's great, and I got to say I'm a big fan of that amenity space.
Thank you. That's all the comments. I'll quickly make my own, not to pile on the whole 3-bedroom discussion. I think Councillor Assured, you're not wrong for asking. Again, if you can create a larger variety of 3-bedroom units in any type of development, it doesn't hurt, because it creates a mixed housing stock. But at this particular development, I don't think we can necessarily fault them either. Again, we've just, I think, gone through the process of approving one site that could likely create upwards to 1,500 households, which will all be low-rise, as opposed to this one that will be 750 plus households that will be 2 bedrooms or 1 bedroom. So it does create that variety that we're looking for. But whenever we talk about this, and Councillor Davey, you said perhaps we should ask to build 3 bedrooms into some of the more downtown buildings, but we have to be cognizant. You can't force square peg in a round hole. The reality of the case is to build larger units into higher density buildings, it costs 3 times more to build. The economics does not make sense. Ultimately, it will be the homeowner that pays for it, or it will be the renter that pays for it. And it's very difficult to have developers then subsidize that cost to bring it down at market or even below market. They are able to do so with 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms and bachelors. So there's more flexibility for them to have some affordable housing component as well. So I think it's important for us to ask. I really applaud any developer who has built 3 bedrooms within high-rise framework, but again, it's something that's a little bit onerous to force, especially when we do have substantive greenfield development that's happening and huge stock of land that's still within the city of Kitchener. Unlike other cities, we do have a healthy greenfield capacity. So I think we have to create just a broad range of housing stock. With that, other than that, it's a good development proposal, and I'm not too concerned with the height. Again, it's decent setbacks and a good amenity access to schools and other parks in the area as well, especially with our district park around the corner. With that, it's moved by Councillor Stretch has already moved a yes, thank you. I'll take the vote, and before I say that, I'll repeat, no, this one will not be ratified, will it? No, this one won't be, okay. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries, thank you. All right, let's move on to 6.4, official plan amendment, application, zoning bylaw amendment, application draft plan of condominium application for 1018 Hidden Valley Road. Mr. Bateman, I believe you are presenting first. Please do so when you're ready, and welcome.
Good evening, Chair, committee members, fellow staff, and residents of Kitchener. My name is Brian Bateman. I'm a senior planner with the City of Kitchener, and I've been tasked with processing this application. I'm very pleased to be bringing forward a planning report recommending approval of an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and vacant land condo applications that would allow for the development of a vacant land condominium comprised of 26 lots, or unit areas as they're known for condominiums, on a private common element roadway. Next slide, site context. The subject site is outlined in red. Whoops, sorry. The subject site is outlined in red, as you can see from the aerial photograph. It comprises one estate residential lot that's addressed as 1018 Hidden Valley Road, and a vacant parcel of land addressed as 980 Hidden Valley. And just to note that the house on 1018 Hidden Valley will have to be demolished to make way for this development. This property is zoned R1. It's under our old bylaw, bylaw 85-1. There are sections of the city, as you're aware, that still have that zoning in place, and this is one of the areas that do. And historically, this area was zoned R1. Anyone familiar with R1 zoning? It's really our unserviced zoning for the city. So at one point in time, this area didn't have any services, but that has changed over time. Just describing the surrounding land use, in yellow I've noted it is surrounded by subdivisions. We've got the Vase subdivision, which is the one that has been there the longest, I think since 1994, to the right or to the east. That comprises very large lots. They're 0.4 hectares in area, 30-meter frontages, and they have municipal water servicing, but they have septic. So hence, that's why they're larger lots. The Cruz subdivision was approved in roughly 2004 or 7, sorry. That is located to the south of the subject lands. It's an R2 zone subdivision. They're very large lots. They're 24 meters wide minimum, 929 square meters in area. Some of them exceed that lot area, but they are zoned R2, not R1. And with that zoning, it's a little bit smaller lot width, 1.2 meter wide side yards, at least in the zoning, and 7.5 meter rear yards. To the east is the Schufta subdivision. That's the latest plan that was approved in approximately 2017. That is also R2 zoned lands with many of the similar zoning regulations that the Cruz subdivision has. And again, but just to let you know that both the Cruz and the Schufta subdivisions are fully serviced subdivisions. So this is the draft plan of vacant land condominium that's being proposed for the subject lands. It proposes 26 unit areas for 26 single detached dwellings on varying lot sizes of no less than 24 meters wide by 929 square meters of area. Again, on a private roadway with 2 points of access onto Hidden Valley Road. And maybe just for some that maybe you're not familiar with vacant land condominiums, the best way I always describe a vacant land condominium is like a subdivision, except instead of a municipally owned roadway, typically we have a 20-meter right-of-way, and that's for services and boulevard and all those things that are conveyed to the city. We own that. In this case, with a private roadway, the roadway is much smaller because it's privately serviced and developed. So we don't need that big right-of-way that we typically see. So that's why this roadway looks smaller. The actual paved width portion is very similar to a subdivision. Might be slightly less, but it's similar. So I thought it'd be useful just to explain that. So the private roadway is described as the common elements portion of the subdivision, and basically the unit areas are tied to the common elements. So if you buy into this condominium, you're paying to maintain the common element portions of the vacant land condo. And typically that includes the roadway, landscaping, lighting, and in this case pedestrians, connection to River Birch, and a sidewalk. This will be a fully serviced development that will be privately maintained. The city will not be footing the bill for any maintenance on this proposal. And implementation of the plan is through conditions of draft plan approval. It's attached to my report. That's attachment C. And I have two updates I'd like to bring to the committee's attention with respect to those conditions. One is a very minor change. Sorry, Diana. A minor revision to the wording of condition 13. The second line is changing the word eastern to western. So it should be the western property boundary, not the eastern property boundary. And then secondly, we received a request late last Friday from Pearl Valley Developments. Pearl Valley Developments owns lands across Hidden Valley, directly opposite of this subdivision. What they're asking for is to add a condition for a servicing easement over these lands in favor of the city, so for their development, but the city would maintain that for the benefit of their development. We are recommending that it not be included in the conditions of approval, but rather staff will address this matter through the forthcoming site plan approval process, which will follow the land use approvals. And Ms. Sinclair of MHBC may also speak to this matter in her presentation on behalf of the developer, Avaya. The proposed official plan amendment. So basically what they're asking for here is they're asking for a site-specific policy area to map 5 and to the text of the official plan to allow for the creation of these lots. The current policy really establishes a 0.4 hectare lot area, and again, that's sort of historically what has been in our OP to recognize those unserviced lots. And certainly that's changed over time. And as you will see from the next slide, the Hidden Valley Land Use Master Plan. Master plan was approved by council in June 2019. Those who were in council at that time may recall seeing this, and it's to provide a land use framework for the Hidden Valley secondary plan is underway. It's been underway for a long time, so it's good to would be good to get this one done. And as can be seen from the slide, so if you can see the red star denoting the area, that's the subject lands. There are essentially two types of residential areas being considered here. There's the low-rise residential estate, that's the yellow lands or yellow portion. And secondly, residential large lot, and that's the gold that the subject lands fall under. And really, that gold category, the large lot, is described that are lots that are a minimum of 24 meters wide and 929 square meters to support single detached dwellings and accessory units on full services. So as you can see from a policy perspective, this is really implementing what we want to see happen on these lands. Zoning bylaw amendment really requests change from the R1 in bylaw 85-1 to Res 1 in bylaw 2019-051 with a site-specific provision 386 that would allow for the use of single detached dwellings and accessory units on lots that are a minimum of 24 meters wide and 929 square meters in area. 386, the special regulation, essentially adds two regulations. One is a 2-meter side yard setback, and that was at the request of residents at our neighborhood meeting. They wanted something wider than what the R2 would ask for, and the owner of I agreed to the 2-meter, just to provide more space between homes. That's sort of characteristic of the development of the area. And secondly, to have a 4.5 meter front yard setback, and that's consistent with the R2 zoning. And that's really to have a consistent front yard. Opportunity. It adds a compact, compatible, and larger lot form of development to the Hidden Valley area and full municipal services. It's consistent with the Hidden Valley Land Use Master Plan that was approved by Council in June of 2019. It'll provide 26 residential units to the city's larger lot inventory, and it will bring these lands into zoning bylaw 2019-051. Highlights and conclusions, recommending approval of the applications to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw, and to approve the draft plan of condominium. Site-specific provision 386 will permit a side yard setback of 2 meters and permit a minimum front yard setback of 4.5. The draft plan of condominium and amendments demonstrate good planning principles and are consistent with provincial, regional, and planning policies. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for that. We do have a delegation first, and we'll come back to questions of staff. Andrea Sinclair, welcome back. Ms. Sinclair, you have 5 minutes, as you know.
Thank you. Kind of a 180 from the last application. So thank you, and thank you for the overview, Brian. So Hidden Valley is, sorry, there we go. Quite unique in the city in that it's, as Brian mentioned, an area that previously was unserviced, so it evolved over time into these large single detached lots. The purpose of this slide is to just sort of show, in this case, almost the lack of amenities in the area. So we don't have transit along Hidden Valley Road. We don't have schools immediately in the area. Commercial's quite a distance away. So usually we're coming forward with all these intensification projects, and it's because there's all these things in place, and that's not the case here. So as mentioned, there was a master plan prepared. This is very much in keeping with the designation that staff proposed through that master plan, and is something that is sort of recognizing the unique nature of this part of the city. In terms of the subject lands, we do have full municipal servicing, so unlike the larger lots to the east, this site will be fully serviced with municipal servicing. A large number, as mentioned, a large number of those lots, especially east of us, and I know there were residents that were concerned that these were smaller lots. They are still quite large, especially in today's context, and it just doesn't make sense to prepare sizes of lots now when we have municipal servicing that equate to some of those original very large lots, but they are still good-sized lots. The property slopes from west to east. There were a number of things discussed during the neighborhood meeting in terms of tree removals, and I'll sort of just go ahead to this slide. In terms of the draft plan that's before us, you'll see the westernmost leg of that private road. So one of the things we heard through the neighborhood meeting was a request to see if that road could be shifted to the east. We did review that in terms of grading and sight lines, and it's just not safe to shift it any further east. The sight lines are not there. So we did explore that. that. We explored grading, and what we came up with is a revised grading concept plan and a revised tree management plan that preserved significant number of more trees and all boundary trees being protected. We do have our arborist here this evening and MTE for any technical questions that go beyond what I can answer, but I will say that coming out of the neighborhood meeting, that was one of the major concerns was tree removal. So the tree management plan that was updated has now been approved by staff with a requirement to do some replantings. In terms of the zoning, I think Brian already covered this off in a fair amount of detail, but it is very consistent with the zoning that's been approved to the south and the west. It's just we're now zoning in the new bylaw as opposed to the 85-1. So the zoning has a different name, but it's essentially the same as the R2 zone with a couple of small exceptions. So as I mentioned, the neighborhood meeting was held back in July, I believe, in June, and the number of things were done as coming out of that neighborhood meeting. We updated the planning report to review, make sure that the development potential of 996 wouldn't be negatively impacted by this, looking at the grading to consider maximizing tree retention, provided some cross sections that showed the overlook. It's not atypical from any other residential neighborhood where there is some lots that are higher than other lots. That is the nature of the grading in this area. We looked at the road shifting, and as I mentioned, any tree removals are now all fully within the property limits of the site application. This is the tree management plan. I won't spend a lot of time on that, but it is here if there's questions. This development supports development within a settlement area on full municipal services. We've given consideration to the unique character of the Hidden Valley area. It's implementing the city's vision for this area, and the conditions of draft plan approval will ensure that this proceeds when we get to detailed design in a way that's appropriate and with support by the city. On the servicing condition that was raised earlier, we agree with staff's position not to include it. We're always concerned with a condition that relates to someone else's servicing solution on someone else's property and the potential ability to not be able to necessarily satisfy that condition. So I think keeping the door open and looking it through this through the site plan process makes sense. If the city does ultimately require a city easement, then that's obviously something we'll accommodate. But at this point, there hasn't been a preferred servicing solution for those lands, and I don't believe they have an active application at this time. So that's my comments. Here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for coming out and presenting this proposal. I just have a couple of questions. One, I think you'll be able to answer. The other one, probably engineering will be able to answer this. What is the smallest starting point for the square footage of the condos? Like, I remember during the meeting or after the meeting, you know, it could range from 25 to 3,000. So is there a starting point of 1,000 square feet or?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So there's not a minimum unit size that goes into the zoning bylaw. They are large lots, so we anticipate they are going to be larger homes, probably in the order of 2,000 square feet and up, but they will be each custom built depending on what people are looking for, but we wouldn't set a certain size in the zoning bylaw.
Okay, yeah, no, and I wasn't suggesting that. I was just curious, you know, if I could put my 3-bedroom bungalow on that property, and I'm assuming probably not.
Yeah, and there will be, I mean, obviously within, even though it's vacant land condo, each lot will still have setbacks the way a residential subdivision would, so provided we're in those setbacks, but it could be, you know, 2 stories, bungalows, it could be quite a range of what we see here.
Okay, thank you. And my next question is regarding the drainage issue. You know, that was a concern for the individuals living on River Bridge, I believe it is. So how can drainage be pushed away from flowing naturally to its lowest point? Because I did read that the drainage will flow away from those houses. So I'm just curious how that actually happens.
And through you, Mr. Chair, if you will indulge me, I'd prefer to have Lynn come down. And
thank you.
I can answer it, but it's probably not going to be the best answer.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Lynn Ingram from MTE, the civil engineering consultant on the file. So to answer your question, in the existing condition, it's grass and it flows over land towards those properties along River Birch. In the proposed condition, we would grade the property so that there's swales that direct drainage to catch basins, and then the drainage goes into the storm sewer system. So in effect, it's an improvement over the existing condition where there's a lot of drainage coming towards those properties.
Okay. That's exactly what I thought was going to happen, but I'm kidding, I didn't have a clue, but thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. And considered now a typical lot that's 30 and 40 feet wide, it's about 2,000 square feet built. So these are 80 feet proposed, so you can make your own guess. Councillor Davey.
Yes, thank you. It might have been answered in the presentation. I'm just curious, like looking at the design, typically wouldn't the westerly part of the road, wouldn't that typically be on the inside sort of the donut as opposed to up against the backyards of the neighboring subdivision? Why did it go there instead of the other location? Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, and that's the portion of the road that we looked at in terms of being able to shift it westerly so that those lots back on, and the sight lines along that road make it an unsafe condition to have the road there. However, the western property line is also where there is going to be a requirement to provide new trees along that edge to help sort of mitigate that condition.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I'll have a question of staff as well.
Chair, that's everyone for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Councillor Davey.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted some clarity. I didn't fully understand the easement portion of the part you brought up, Mr. Bateman, if you wouldn't mind explaining that again.
Just bear with me. Go ahead. Keep it on. Oh, sorry, this is coming.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. The easement that they are requesting is where the second access is, Councillor Davies. Right across the street from that, there's a proposed, well, I wouldn't say proposed, there's an old plan of subdivision for those lands. I think 6 to 8 lots estate back in the day. It was draft approved in 1988. So where that street lines up, it's directly across from that second access. So they'd like to outlet their sanitary through this development that connects to River Birch Crescent. We were suggesting that perhaps that they could bring that down Hidden Valley to Hidden Valley Crescent and then up River Birch. So there's another servicing option that could be considered. And I think we'd like to explore that further before we commit to any easement through a private development.
Okay, and there's no legal benefit to us to doing that at the time of this approval? We're protected in every other way if it happens at site plan?
Sorry, you want to repeat that again? Sorry,
I'm just doing due diligence. So in terms of the easement and the agreements, there's no benefit to us tying this change to that easement process?
No, I would say not. We can, through site plan, get those easements if need be. I mean, there is the generic condition that we always add to all these draft approvals that the city can get easements through the process. So again, once the detailed design is worked out and that development to the north is sort of further along, perhaps we could work at what may be the best solution for the city.
Okay, thank you. Just by way of 2-second comment, Mr. Chair, I think this is a great development. I think it really respects the neighborhood well.
Mr. Stevenson, were you trying to say something?
Sorry, thank you, Chair. So the lands that are in question to the north can be serviced, and they could be serviced through a public street. So in terms of the risk of the development potential, those lands still have development potential, and there wouldn't be any liability by not requiring a cost share and a servicing arrangement. There would be a financial benefit perhaps to the landowner to the north if they were able to cost share and establish an easement. They don't have that agreement, and what is the development potential to the north has not fully been determined. So it's premature at this time, and our engineering staff have reviewed it and confirmed that should the lands to the north develop, there is a servicing option. So it doesn't hinder the ability from a servicing perspective.
Councillor Deneau, comments?
Just a comment, yep. Yep. Thank you, Chair. I want to, I know I heard some concerns at the online meeting last year, and two of the major concerns I heard were the loss of trees and the grading and the runoff. And I think, you know, reading the report and seeing that the owner has agreed, you know, that I think that's good goodwill on their part to say, yeah, we heard what the residents were saying, and I think you know, we can change things. You know, the fact that we're preserving 113 large trees, I actually took a walk shortly after the meeting last year, and I saw the concerns that the people in River Birch will have with privacy, but the fact that they're maintaining all those trees on the backside of their houses, where their pools are, where they connect with family and friends, again, I think that's a great goodwill gesture on the owner's part. You know, and again, addressing the grading concerns that the residents had, and so the sloping, yeah. And so, you know, this area is destined for lots of development in the next few years and beyond it, and so, you know, I think this is an appropriate use of this vacant area. So again, thank you to the staff and the developers for working together and listening to the concerns of the residents of that area.
Thank you very much. And that's everyone. Would you like to move it, Councillor Deneau?
Yes, I'll move it.
Okay. The item has been moved. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right, that takes us through the bulk of the planning items. Next up is 6.5, Building Connect the Cities Together. Why don't we take a 5-minute break in between, just a bio break, before we get started with the next item. Thank you. 5 minutes. All right, if you can get started in a minute, please. Okay, so once again, we have now concluded the formal public meeting to consider applications under the Planning Act. We are now moving into special meeting held under subsection 26-3 of the Planning Act to discuss the revision that may be required as part of the 10-year review of the city's official plan. And this is a pretty momentous item. Staff have been working on this a long time, and this is, I guess, the first point in time where we would have opportunity to start giving some feedback. So this is the Building a Connected City Together Official Plan Comprehensive Update launch. Tim Donaghy. So Donaghy, you are presenting, I believe. And so whenever you're ready, go ahead. Or not.
Yeah, thank you, members of council, committee, and the public who are here today. I just wanted to begin by saying this is a very important moment for the city and the planning team, and this is a project we're very excited about. We are about to launch our new official plan, which is the guiding document that sets out the land use planning across the city, and this is really a transformative opportunity. So the team has been working really hard to put together the scope of work and think about engagement and how we're going to collaboratively work with the community to deliver this project. And I'm excited to turn it over to Tim Donaghy to walk you through the scope of our new official plan project. Thank you.
Just quickly, just to put into context, if you want to key back in, Rosa, quickly. Just the momentousness of this, undertaking that we will be proceeding with. When's the last time that we did the update?
The last official plan for the city of Kitchener was approved in 2014.
2014, yes, so 10 years. So there's only 3 members of council that had that chance to participate, and there's a big change in turnover of council, so a lot more voices will get included. With that, Tim, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Chair Singh and council. So Kitchener is forecast to grow from today's estimated population of 280,000 to a population of 409,000 by 2051. As the city looks to accommodate new neighbors into our community, we need a new official plan to guide Kitchener's growth and shape the way neighborhoods evolve and change. Kitchener is growing fast and facing city building challenges like a housing crisis, pedestrian and cyclist deaths and injuries, inequity, climate change, social isolation, and the challenges of how to pay for aging infrastructure and city services. We're also presented with incredible opportunities like new mobility technologies, a young and highly skilled workforce, strong neighborhoods and communities, a rich, diverse culture, and a growing desire for urban connection. The new official plan represents an opportunity to tackle these challenges head on and be ready for an uncertain future. It should reflect who we are, what we value, and the Kitchener that we want to become. A thriving city that offers well-being, potential, and quality of life for everyone. Oops. So the official plan needs to consider several matters like conforming with the regional official plan, with provincial policy, but it's also an opportunity to explore some of the city building issues and challenges that are most important to us. Staff have identified an initial list of the things we think we ought to consider. They're listed for you here. A critical one is going to be housing supply, choice, and affordability. It's no surprise to anyone in this council that that's a critical issue facing our community, and it's been identified by you and by our community time and time again. Also, energy transition and climate change. We've committed to reducing our GHG emissions 80% by 2050. That aligns quite well with the 2051 horizon of this plan. How we build is a huge driver of how we get there. Complete walkable communities are really important with where we want to go as a city and as a region. And that's part and parcel with sustainable, safe, and equitable transportation options. We know that it's not just the housing, but it's the parks, the open spaces, the community infrastructure that are so critical to our communities and making them great places to live. That's also the other non-residential supporting uses are crucially important. Do we have places to shop? Do we have places to work? Are there opportunities for culture? How do we bring all these pieces together into a community that we're all proud of? Furthermore, how should we grow? Where should we grow? And what does it look like to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success financially to pay for the services to support that growth? We also know that we need to plan for an economically thriving city. And through this project, we want to ensure equity both in the process of developing the official plan, in the policies of the official plan, and make it an official plan that's usable to audiences maybe beyond the ones that today read it. So how will we do it? Our plan is to deliver this new official plan to you, Council, in this term as a strategic plan priority. This year, 2024, really looks like undertaking a series of detailed technical and background studies, establishing a community working group, and eliciting a broad range of community engagement on the technical inputs. That technical and background phase will bleed into early 2025, where we'll start drafting the new official plan and undertaking significant community engagement with a community working group, with the broader community, and other collaborators. This all to deliver a draft official plan for your consideration in early 2026. So engagement. The process is going to be critically important. We've developed some engagement principles here. I mentioned that there's going to be a community working group. We think that could look like a group of folks who maybe aren't familiar with the day-to-days of city building, but really represent the Kitchener that we have today and maybe the one we have tomorrow in terms of ages, demographics, outlook on life, socioeconomic conditions, and really lean on them to collaborate in the development of the policies. And as we get into the development of the official plan, the opportunity for us is to think about the cities and neighborhoods we visited or we might want to live in someday. What makes them great, and how can they inform the Kitchener of the future? What do the future of our neighborhoods look like? How can we welcome new neighbors? How can we ensure that Kitchener takes care of the world around us and each other? What new ideas can help address our most pressing city building challenges and capitalize on our opportunities? So really my pitch to the community and to you is that the official plan represents an opportunity for us to really dig deep and articulate our collective vision of the Kitchener of the future and make our plan to get there. Now is the time to talk about the growth and change we want to see in Kitchener, and it's incumbent upon all of us to shape that vision and not leave it to others to shape it for us. With that, I'll conclude my presentation and answer any questions.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Very excited to kick this off. Haven't been through it before. It's quite the process. I do have just a couple very high level questions because I think that's where we are, right? With respect to the financial implications, because it's looking like we're going to be spending a little over $1 million total through this process. I just wanted to confirm. It looks like the first $750,000 or so. That's all development. Is that all development charge funding that's supporting that?
Through the chair, that's the amount that was allocated in the DC background study. So there's, I believe, a 10% benefit to existing, which is not from DC funds. They'd be from tax, but they were identified within the DC background study.
Okay. Okay. And the $300,000, can you remind me what's going to come out of the housing needs assessment?
Through the chair, as part of our Housing Accelerator Fund application, we're required to undertake a housing needs assessment. The federal government has outlined some of the key principles of things that need to be included in that. So they're really around detailing the kinds of housing that's needed in our community in terms of tenure, in terms of type, in terms of affordability, location, special needs housing, family housing, etc. So these are a lot of the same questions that we need to ask and answer as part of the official plan review about translating that population forecast into a more precise description of how that translates into our housing needs. So we saw an opportunity to coordinate and consolidate that work.
Mr. Reedman, do you want to just add?
Yes, through the chair. And so we did one in 2018 as part of our affordable housing study. That was the first time the City of Kitchener had completed a housing needs assessment, and it has become more common for municipalities to do them, and it is indeed a requirement of the HAF funding to update that housing needs assessment. It looks at people that are living paying more than 30% of their rent and really identifies where there are gaps in affordable housing provision, people that are overcrowded in houses and the number of bedrooms, and so we really do a deep dive into the StatScan data as part of that.
Okay, that's useful. Can you break down the difference? Like, do you have an idea yet what the difference of that $300,000 is going to be between that housing needs assessment and the climate adaptation plan? Or is it too preliminary to ask that question?
Through the chair, we don't have that breakdown at this time.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. I think this is amazing work so far, and I'm looking forward to working along with you on this. One of the questions I have with regards to the complete communities. So we're developing fast, and things are going up fast, maybe not as fast as we anticipate, but how do you incorporate making sure we have walkable communities? Is this something that you'll start right away? And like, how can you just give me an example of what you'll do to get this started?
Yeah, through the chair, there are policies in the current official plan, which is titled Complete and Healthy Kitchener, which really do look at building complete community. We've had some successes in that and some challenges, so I don't want to presume exactly what those solutions will look like. We'll look for some support from some consultants to provide advice to us on, what are leading municipalities, both in Canada and internationally, doing to really help deliver on that complete communities promise. And make sure that it meets the needs of our communities. So it could be around, planning for in each planning community, ensuring that there is sufficient commercial space, institutional space, park space, culture space, access to transit to maybe higher order recreation opportunities. I'm really doing that scan to make sure the land uses that we've planned for really meet those needs.
So that's going forward, but can we look at communities now, and I'll use Dune South as an example. It's not a great walkable community in many areas out there. Is there any opportunity to look at areas like that exist and transition them into more walkable communities to the commercial space, just as you spoke?
Yeah, absolutely. This official plan, because we expect most of our growth to happen in the already built-up area of the city, most of the official plan's focus will be in the already built-up areas of the city. So that includes places like Dune South and really how to, retrofit the suburbs into how to become more complete communities.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Good work.
Councillor Stretch.
Yes, I'm really excited to be able to be part of something this big in Kitchener, and I had a few questions. The first one is, how do we measure our participation rate, and do we know what it was in 2014?
Through the chair, I don't have those figures for you. We could maybe dig them up. Typically, when we deliver large-scale policy projects, we'll provide to you updates on how engagement is going. So we'll measure sort of the sort of number of touch points that we have, how many folks engaged. We also like to collect demographic information where folks are willing to share that to understand, are the people that we're hearing from, do they represent sort of the community of Kitchener, or does it look a bit different than that? So these are all the kinds of questions. So there's the numbers, there's also sort of the quality that we try and report on in as best we can. Obviously that's going to be more subjective, but community engagement is going to be a big part of this work. We're going to share with you frequently about what's going on community engagement, and if we're falling short on our objectives, which I'd say are quite ambitious on engagement on this project, we'll adapt and make sure we get there.
Mr. Reedman.
And through this process as well, we've identified the formation of a citizen working group as well, and that's something we've done very successfully on a number of large-scale strategies that cover across the city, including our strategic plan that was recently conducted. And so that really allows those individuals that are part of that to form a really deep understanding of the work we're doing, help represent the voices of their community, and help us engage more broadly in neighborhoods where we don't necessarily have those relationships.
I have more questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so will we have a goal in our participation rate that we will track, or are we looking for more, or are you saying you're looking for more quality based on the not the quantitative, but the qualitative feedback?
Through the chair, interesting comment. We've not set a goal yet, but it's something I'd like to think about and take away.
I guess I would like to see, creative ideas on how to engage the community that might include some different demographics of people that we haven't heard from in the past, perhaps gamification of our tracking of these numbers, as well as maybe the right word isn't incentivizing, but having contests or different ways to bring in people that we haven't normally seen who might, not be engaged by working on a committee, but, we may hear from if we offer Tim Hortons gift cards, for example. Is there an openness to that?
Yeah, through the chair, absolutely. We at a staff level are developing sort of a high-level engagement plan, and the objectives are very much the ones that you've shared with me about reaching folks we maybe haven't historically reached in past processes, be they newcomer communities or youth. As I develop this project, I kind of reflect that most people that are about a third of the people that are going to live in Kitchener in 2051 haven't been born yet, right? Even more of them don't live in Kitchener today. They live in another country or another province, right? So how do we kind of up our game on reaching those sort of folks? Yeah, and all options are on the table. I like some of the ideas you have. We've got some others. Maybe we can talk more offline.
Okay, Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Singh. It's great to hear all this engagement, and I'm just wondering if youth could be part of this too. I'm just thinking back to the great presentation we had from Grow Public School. Some of those great ideas, because these are going to be the people that will be purchasing homes in the future, and if we can keep them in mind now, I think that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, through the chair, youth is really one area where we are really hoping to up our game on engagement. I think engaging with those folks and leveraging those relationships in Grow Public School is a great idea.
Great, and I'm sure that equity, diversity, and inclusion will be taken into consideration very heavily.
Through the chair, yes.
Absolutely, thank you.
Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the report. I had a few questions. First of all, we've heard of the provincial government wanting to take the regional official plan out of the equation. So where does that leave us?
Through the chair, the city official plan needs to conform with the regional official plan under today's planning framework. If and when the regional official plan, ceases to exist, we think that those kinds of policies that currently exist only in the official plan will need to make their way into the city official plan at a high level. There's some more nuance to it than that, but that's the short answer.
And do we worry about putting all the effort and work into this now and then have to repeat it again in, a very short period of time because of what may be handed down by the province?
So through the chair, maybe I can just add in, I speak regularly with the other planning heads from the other local municipalities, and we have had discussions around what types of things would need to transfer down from a regional official plan to a local official plan when that transition happens. And so we do have a good sense of the scope of policies that are currently sitting at the regional level that would then have to be translated into a local official plan. And in the meantime, as Tim has said, we feel it's important to prepare our official plan at the local level and set forth the policies that are applicable to Kitchener. And if and when those responsibilities are transferred, we do have a preliminary approach in place to transfer those regional policies down to our plan.
Okay, and will those be shared with council at some point? Because I think it'd be useful to know what those policies are before, you know, it's actually happening.
Let's stop sharing the mic. It'll be easier for me to handle. So go ahead.
Through the chair, yes, we'll update council intermittently on what's going on with the official plan, absolutely. The project has been designed to be adaptable on the timing and the decision-making of the transfer of regional official plan, or regional planning authority. We've designed the scope and the approach to be relatively nimble on that question.
Mr. Reedman?
Okay.
Yeah, through the chair. So Bill 23 had outlined that upon proclamation that there would be no responsibility for the region in official plan development, and so things like the urban boundary, planning for growth and things like that would be coming to the City of Kitchener, and so we're working on that transition plan, and we also have been working with the region on how we can maintain their commenting authority through that transition once proclamation happens.
And I think that's sort of what I was trying to get at, like how we've got to be on top of this, right, and not get our official plan in order and then have to redo the whole thing in order to incorporate what's coming down to us from the region. But it sounds like you've sort of thought this through. Okay, so my other question has to do with. There are a couple questions in the context of the report that. So, for example. Is there sufficient planned water supply and wastewater treatment capacity to service growth? And that surprised me when I read that, because residents will often ask that question. You know, how is there enough water and for all these big towers in the downtown area? And the answer is always yes. So I guess I just assumed that work is already being done. And so maybe you can just explain, how far along that work is and why it needs to be revisited here. Like, are there concerns that we should have about the water supply and the wastewater treatment capacity of the city right now?
Through the chair, so the answer is yes. Under the current official plan, it's got a 2031 planning horizon and a population forecast that's smaller, right? So as we move to 2051 and a larger population forecast, that's going to have additional infrastructure demands, and we need to ensure that those are still appropriate. There's a sort of a technical question about, massaging the population forecast that came out of the ROP in response to the housing pledge, and we'll need to sort of check in on those details. But in principle, it's very typical as part of a new official plan to do a comprehensive review of all the servicing implications and make sure that you've got services in place, or if you don't, get a plan in place to make sure they're there when they're needed.
Okay, I've got a couple more questions, but I can keep back in if you prefer, Chair.
No, go ahead. You're the last person.
Okay, my other question had to do with how would a resident apply to be on this community working group, or what's the process? Because, we're opening the door here, and there could be a lot of people that would like to be considered. So what would the process be?
Through the chair, we haven't detailed that completely yet. We suspect we'll leverage some of the successes that we've had on the Cycling Trails Master Plan or the Downtown Vision Advisory Committee to have an application-based process and potentially a committee to help select the appropriate folks. We're also going to ask our engagement consultant to help us onboard that team. So we don't have all the details there yet. The principles are really going to be around having a community or members of the community that look like the Kitchener of tomorrow.
Okay, which brings me to the idea of a collective vision that you mentioned. I mean, that sounds very ambitious. Is there such a thing? Like, is there such a thing of a collective vision of anything that we do in life, right? So, I don't know, maybe you want to comment on that.
Yeah, through the chair, this work builds on the vision that was established through the strategic plan from the City of Kitchener 6 or 8 months ago. We feel that that's a strong vision. It needs a little further elaborating to make its way into a story that's really about growth and change and land use. But we've seen a vision that is strong and is supported by the community and is really a great point of departure for our policy work.
Okay, one last question, and then I'll let you move on. I notice in the report there's no mention of the urban design manual or the work that has been done in that regard. Is that something that's an oversight or something we can expect to be brought in, or why is it missing?
Yeah, through the chair, there are sort of three main bodies of policy tools that influence development. One is the official plan, one is the zoning bylaw, and three is the urban design manual and urban design guidelines. So really, today we're really just talking about the official plan. The urban design policies of the official plan will certainly be in scope, but a review of the manual is not in scope at this time. It is, I believe, part of the policy work plan to do an update of phase or Part C of the manual. Parts A and B are recently updated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That seems to be all the questions. I'll ask mine. With the official plan review, how will it coincide with the strategic plan, especially when the strategic plan has a much wider perspective view of a 20-year horizon? What will we do as we seek input and also see if it's aligning with the overall vision of the strategic plan as well?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. We are intending to jump off from the community or from the community conversations that happened through the strategic plan. So we want to respect the input that the community has given us already. We don't need to blue sky everything that we've done today. We have a fairly good idea of what's important to our community at a high level. We've learned that through the strategic plan. We've learned that through recent initiatives like Housing for All, like Growing Together, like Places and Spaces. So we're really hoping to leverage and build on some of that direction and community conversation that's happened, but really we'd like to incorporate the strategic plan vision. I suspect the strategic plan vision, as you've drafted it, will find its way into the new official plan. If our community conversations are, showing us that really is no longer relevant, I guess we'll have to come back and have a conversation. I don't foresee that.
Okay. No, I think that's important. Would be an important touch point if there is a contradiction. It's a little bit of a comment, but I'll get to another question. At the same time, I think we've gone through that consultation stage of setting certain priorities through the strategic plan, and planning plays a part. The way our city grows plays a part towards our strategic initiatives, and that's more importantly through the environment, through intensification, and more importantly through our financial capacity, and how we build has an impact on the financial viability. As a reference point, we approved two planning applications, one on Graw, where there's 1,500 households, maybe 58 hectares, that's going to house 1,500 households, and then we approved another one that's maybe 2 hectares, that's going to house 750 households. So will we, through the official plan review, place a greater understanding of the financial impacts of intensification?
Mr. Chair, yes is the short answer. The growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe asks us to consider the full life cycle cost of infrastructure as we're planning development. So that's just not what it costs us today, and development charges that may fund a large portion of that. But as those responsibilities are transferred to the taxpayer and the ratepayer over time, does each development kind of make us richer, or does it make us poorer, right? Is it more assets or is it more liabilities? So I hope through some of those growth management conversations that'll be part of this official plan, and as we comprehensively analyze different growth scenarios or options, ways to accommodate our population and employment growth, the financial lens will be an important one.
So because of those financial lens, I think it's pretty understood within those in this room, but will we create kind of more of an educational aspect of materials as we seek input, so that those that we're seeking input from have an early onset of understanding as they provide input, what that context could mean towards long-term visioning and planning towards financial impacts as well?
Yeah, to you, Mr. Chair, you'll see one of our engagement principles was really around building community capacity to have informed engagement. So we know, planning issues are not top of mind for most folks in their day-to-day, right? There is a skilling up that's required for meaningful engagement on a lot of these topics. They're pretty esoteric. That's one of the reasons we really like the community working group, is we can spend the time and learn and build up their capacity and their skill set to have those challenging and nuanced conversations, for example, around the financial implications of growth. We need to right-size the inform part and the collaborate part of our engagement. One must follow the other, and that's really some of the key principles that are making their way into the engagement plan.
Okay. Did you reset the clock for me? Because it went by really fast. No? Okay. It just felt like when I'm speaking, it goes a lot faster. Councillor Stretch really raised an important point about participation. More importantly, we have a certain target based on how many we were able to reach through 2014, and so where we need to do deeper work to make sure that we meet that minimum target. And the other is, of course, the overall demographics of it. And Mr. Dunnigan, I think through your presentation you said it, 1/3 of our population will be those that I don't live in the community as of yet. They may be immigrating or newly born, but can't really seek out the newly born yet. But the fact that those that may not be part of the community, it could be potentially the international student component that would perhaps consider this community as their long-term home. Would we seek out opportunities through engagement through Conestoga College and the universities, overall our youth, through the colleges and universities, and more importantly, to get a broader perspective of the international student market as well?
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Also, one last question. Those that are quite vested, and a lot of times the overly housed, seem resistant to change in their neighborhood up until they're ready to move. How will we counter that kind of the innate biases that sometimes we bring with us to ensure that we're getting the right type of responses or balanced responses?
Yeah, through the chair, that will be a challenging incumbent upon all of us to deal with, right? The voices that have historically had power in planning decisions are not necessarily the ones that need to have that same amount of power if we take on an equity-based approach to this work. That will get difficult as we come to the end, right? And I think together, staff and council, we can have regard for all that impact, understand those interests, hear them, balance them, and make decisions together that are aligned with our vision.
I'll just quickly add one more thing. It's, I think, important for us to have an equal balance of those that are homeowners and renters, to really understand the housing needs of our overall community. With that, Councillor Davey, okay, comments? Councillor Stretch, question or comments? Of course, yeah, I'll come to Councillor Davey first, and then come back to you for comments. Go ahead for your question. Go ahead. For your question.
I thought you said
no, for your comments, because Councillor Davey.
My comment, will we be engaging different community organizations, for example, the Child and Youth Planning Table, and using some of their expertise in knowing our community?
Through the chair, we are currently undertaking what we're calling a pre-engagement phase, so talking to some of the organizations and folks in our communities who we think are key and important stakeholders as we engage, to understand how they want to be engaged, what are the key areas of interest, and how can they help support this work. So I think the Children and Youth Table is a good example of that.
Councillor Davey, go ahead.
Yeah, just by way of comment, again, I'm excited to see this work beginning. In our private conversations, just want to reiterate my hope to see, as much as I want to get, engagement from random citizens that are interested, I'm very interested in seeing getting some professional advice back on what the world looks like. I personally believe transportation, work patterns as a result of things like artificial intelligence is really, and how that relates to our zoning is going to change a whole lot of things. Mobility, navigation, all of these things. And we need to have some informed information on from our experts on where they think, I think things can be very different in 10 years, let alone the 25 that we're projecting forward. So it's very, very important that part of the official plan that comes back speaks to what we expect the future to be like in terms of work patterns, in terms of transportation, and the trends that we're seeing there. So that's something I will personally be asking for throughout this process. But I do want to thank you guys for the work here. It looks like it's a very comprehensive way of engaging our residents in the city and planning the best possible future for us. So thank you.
Councillor Snyder.
Thank you, Chair Singh. I really like what Councillor Davey said there about also adding in some professional help. Mr. Donagany, a line that really resonated with me is that you want this committee to be representative of the Kitchener of tomorrow. I really like that line. I think that's fantastic. This is great work, and I think, as always, we look forward as council to working with you and the entire planning team. You are professionals, and I think we're on the same page with this very much. And I would just personally like to be informed if you ever hear of like planning conferences for planning for the future, or seminars that council could also attend. So we're sort of all educated the same way. It'd be great to be aware of that. Thanks so much.
Councillor Stretch.
I think my last comment is, really just in support of the idea and the vision here, and just wanted to reiterate the preciousness and the carefulness that is going to need to be taken to hear the voices that we don't normally hear from, some creative and really inclusive ways to engage people that we don't normally. I would love to see some innovative work here.
All right, those seem to be comments. I'll just quickly add my own. I don't envy you sitting there. This is going to be a huge undertaking and a very onerous process. Wouldn't be surprised if you guys age faster in those next couple of years with the stress of it all. And I mean, it's not an easy task where we're bestowing it on you, a responsibility of saying, hey, make sure you plan effectively for the next 10 years based on all things that we don't know yet. Right, and I think that can be done better by having much wider balanced views. So whichever direction is chosen, it's that unified vision of the community, so there's no one to fault. And more importantly, I think it's very effective, or should be effective on us, to look at other communities that may be a little ahead of us. It surprises me sometimes. We wonder as a community, where are we going to go? We just got to look a little towards the GTA. It's scary, but one day we will be that density. We will have those problems, but we can do better by looking at them to safeguard ourselves on the problems that they've had with their planning, how they've grown, by doing better by ourselves, so that the growth that we're projecting going from 280 to 400,000 plus, and that density happens in a much better way than perhaps of our other peer communities that are ahead of us that have done. So looking at other peer communities that are, again, growing at a fast pace like us as a CMA, I think bring that ideas, and some of them may have very bold ideas that may seem kind of difficult to swallow. But I think all options need to be at the table. It may not be the direction that we head out, but that should be options put on the table, so as a consensus of this community as well as this council can start looking at some of those ideas. And perhaps even in some areas, Kitchener itself can be bold as well. But I just want to say thank you ahead for all the hard work that you will be doing. And with that, I think we have a recommendation moved by Councillor Davey. And it just says any recommendations arising from this matter will be considered at a special council meeting later this day. So it's moved by Councillor Davey. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Thank you very much. And with that, we have a information item, Kitchener Great Places Award. Just remind me again, we used to do like a gala, or, where we used to, kind of showcase all the great buildings that have been done in a community. We went away from that, or are we bringing that back? Good question. Go ahead.
So to you, Chair, we did that in November. That's what the report
I missed
is.
it. Oops.
That's what
As the
report
chair,
is
maybe
about.
I should have attended that one. Well, I'm glad perhaps maybe we need to advertise that a little bit more. So thank you. All right. So planning is adjourned. I don't think I need a mover for that, but then we'll move on to special counsel. Sure. All right. Thank you.